It's a new product video for the new Legacy 462 Pacifics, available as the New Jersey Central 6-11335 Jersey Central Blue Comet, cab number 832. Under product number 6-11334, the Southern Crescent Limited 462, cab number 1393, and also under product number 6-11338, the Alton Limited Legacy 462 Pacific, cab number 657. When you take your locomotive out of the package, you will receive the locomotive and tender, the instruction manual for loading your engine memory module, an instruction manual for the locomotive itself, the nut driver for removing the side rod screws to install traction tires when necessary, the pipette for adding smoke fluid to the stack, and also the auxiliary smoke unit for the smoking whistle, 2 replacement traction tires, a dummy O-gauge coupler for mounting to the pilot to operate with other Legacy equipped locomotives in a multiple unit consist, and the engine memory module. These locomotives feature main stack smoke, smoking whistle, which is activated each time you blow the whistle, operating class lamps on the smoke box front, operating headlight, cab light that's only on when the locomotive is in idle or neutral. When the locomotive is moving, the cab light turns off. We have operating marker lamps on the rear of the tender, an operating coil coupler on the rear, the new smaller low profile IR tether on the drawbar. Locomotive features a single DC can motor. It is Legacy equipped and has Legacy rail sounds. The Pacific locomotives are equipped with 2 smoke units. One smoke unit under the main stack that provides obviously the main stack smoke, and another smoke unit that's located underneath this steam dome. This steam dome actually will pop off. There's actually a small rubber O-ring on this brass fitting. It's designed to make sure that the smoke, when it's heated up, stays inside that chamber so that all of the vapor is available to exit the whistle smoke port. It's not uncommon to have this rubber O-ring be a little stubborn. So just a small drop of smoke fluid on that rubber O-ring to help lubricate it will really facilitate getting this cap on and off quickly and easily without that rubber O-ring jumping out of its slot. So this is the smoke fill hole here for the auxiliary smoke, which is the whistle smoke, and smoke fluid goes into the main stack, right down the stack, for the main stack smoke unit. On your tender on the Pacifics, underneath the water hatch on the water deck, is the volume control for the sound system. More importantly, the manual volume control. So volume up and volume down. If you're running with Legacy or TMCC, you can leave that set to up and you can control the volume manually off of the remote. However, if you're operating conventionally, this volume potentiometer will be your ultimate master volume control. Before we put the locomotive on the track, we want to always make sure that we do a little preventive maintenance. To do this, we're simply going to use some oil from the Lionel lubrication and maintenance kit that we've put into a needle applicator bottle. What we want to do is we want to put some oil, just a real light drop, on the axle for the collectors. And work that in with your finger. We also want to make sure that we put some oil on the axles where they go through the bearings in the frame. It's a very important step. It'll help you eliminate any possible squeaks that you can have when you get the locomotive running. And it's just good preventive maintenance. So you want to do that to all 3 of the axles on both sides. You want to also put a light drop of oil on the side rod screws, and then also on the eccentric crank where it goes through the eccentric sleeve and around the main rod spacer and the main rod. You want to do that for both sides. Can also put a drop of oil on the pilot truck, on the axle where it goes through the metal frame of the pilot. Work that in. All these legacy locomotives have a non-locking gearbox. You can roll these over while it's sitting on the bench. Work that oil in. Well, make sure you lubricate both sides, both the axles and the side rods and the eccentric crank. Even though the tender has plastic bearings for the axles, you want to still put a small drop of oil on the end of the axle where it inserts into the bearing, and then also right by the ground strap. And this will prevent any squealing from occurring when you're running the locomotive. The gearboxes are lubricated from the factory, so there's really no need to take the engine apart to lubricate the gearbox. You also want to perform the same steps on the tender. The important places to oil are the axle for the collector, right at the roller. Just a small drop of oil on each axle for the collector, and work that in. And then you want to put a small drop of oil on the ends of the axles where they insert into the bronze bearings in the side frame of the tender trucks, and roll that in. Again, you want to do the same for both sides of the truck, front and rear. Lubricate those. Some of the coil couplers that we've been getting recently on these models are a little bit stubborn. You'll fire the coupler. We're actually using DC current to fire the couplers now, so they fire much quieter than they did with TMCC1. However, sometimes the knuckle doesn't open all the way. Just a quick puff of some dry graphite lubricant once the coupler is open, right into the opening in the coupler itself, in the throat of the coupler, will really improve that operation. So if that happens to plague you on your locomotive, just a small puff of dry lubricant into the throat of the coupler, it'll solve your problem. Knuckle will work much more reliably. The switches on your Legacy Pacifics, be it the Blue Comet, the Southern Crescent, or the Chicago and Alton, are all located on the underside of the locomotive. By moving the trailing truck aside, we can see that we have the auxiliary smoke unit in with SMK is for auxiliary smoke unit on, and no smoke is for auxiliary smoke unit off. The auxiliary smoke unit on these Pacifics is the smoking whistle. Then we have main smoke. No smoke, of course, is off, and SMK is on. Main smoke would be the stack smoke. Move the truck again. We have our program run switch. Place the switch in program to program a new ID number to the locomotive, and run to operate it. In a conventional environment, run allows the reverse unit to cycle through forward, neutral, reverse, neutral, and forward. Placing it in the program position will lock the E unit in so that it will only run in one direction. Finally, the last switch is the Odyssey on-off switch. In the ODY position, that's on, meaning the speed control is enabled. In the no ODY position, that's speed control off. Before we actually program the locomotive, we need to tell our cab 2 everything about our locomotive. To do this, we're going to use the orange memory module that comes in the box. This particular module is for the Blue Comet Pacific. So what we're going to do, using our numbering convention of the last 2 digits of the cab number on the Blue Comet is 832. So we're going to assign our locomotive to be engine 32. First need to tell our cab 2 this. So we press engine 32. We take our orange memory module and we insert it with the silver circle L facing up in the hole on the top of our cab. We press the info button in the upper right hand corner, and we press the button underneath load. It tells us the module is inserted. It's a Central New Jersey Blue Comet 11335 Pacific, cab number 832. Load engine data. Press the button under yes. Our engine data is now loaded. We can remove the module. put it back in the package or somewhere you'll not lose it. What this has done for us is it has assigned the name already. Press the scroll button in the upper left hand corner. It set our type to Steam. Press scroll again. It set our control to Lionel Legacy. So the Legacy base and the locomotive. The Legacy base will broadcast a 9-bit command signal to the locomotive, and the locomotive will in turn generate the 9-bit internal serial data that allows you to access all the cool Legacy features. Pressing scroll again, it set our sounds to Legacy rail sounds. To exit this menu, we simply press Info, and let's address the locomotive. Engine 32. Cab number displays momentarily. CNJ Blue Comet Pacific scrolls across the top. The icons on the touchpad, you have the numbers. We have the icon for cab light on and off. Press that once, cab light will turn off. Press it again, the cab light comes back on. Remember, with Legacy locomotives, the cab light is only on when the locomotive is sitting at idle. When the engine begins moving, the cab light turns off under Legacy control. We have the icon for power on. Pressing and holding this icon will play a dialogue before the startup sounds. Pressing it quickly will give you the same result as pressing any other button. The sounds will just come right up. We've got the no sound icon, and we've got the speed limit icon. We can touch the aux1 key one time, and the icons on the touchpad change. These icons represent volume up, crew talk, steam let off, volume down. The black circle is shutdown. However, when we turn the throttle and get the locomotive moving, that icon changes to a black triangle, which is emergency stop. Pressing that when the locomotive is running will play an emergency stop dialog. Once we stop the locomotive by turning the throttle down to 0, that icon changes back to a black circle, which is shutdown. In the number 6 position, we have steam blowdown, tower comm, smoke off, smoke on. In Legacy control mode, you have 3 levels of smoke, low, medium, and high. We have marker lights on and marker lights off. Those are to control the rear marker lights on the back of the tender. We have R, or reset, and then we have Rule 17 lighting on and Rule 17 lighting off. We can change these icons by pressing the speed bar. We have our 6 preset railroad speeds: tower comm, smoke off, smoke on. This bar graph is a direct representation of the intensity of the chuff, and that is controlled by the FX button up and the FX button down. Pressing up will display labor increase across the top, and that bar graph will raise. This will make the locomotive chuff much harder and more laborious. Pressing the FX down lowers our bar graph. It says labor decrease. That'll be more of the drifting sound in the chuff, and you can control that manually. Finally, the number 1 represents roll speed. That's the first speed step the locomotive can obtain with Odyssey 2 enabled, and maintain that speed. So to exit this menu, we press aux1, get back to our engine icon screen, or we can readdress the locomotive, engine 32, and we get a different screen. So let's go ahead and get the locomotive programmed and put it through its paces. Before we do anything, we want to make sure that we program the locomotive. But even before we program it, we want to make sure that we add smoke fluid. We recommend using the Lionel Premium Smoke Fluid, which is available under product number 6-37841. It's important to keep in mind that when these smoke units are developed in both the engineering department and then tested in the factory, we always use Lionel Premium Smoke Fluid. It's what Lionel recommends for the peak performance out of this locomotive. To begin, we're going to use the smoke fluid pipette that came in the box. We'll go ahead and fill the pipette up with fluid. And we want to get the fluid to basically 3/4 of the way from the tip of the pipette to the first line on the pipette itself. Insert that pipette all the way down the stack and insert the smoke fluid. Couple puffs of air to make sure that we clear any meniscus that may form inside the stack itself. Also want to remove the small steam dome with the whistle detail. That's the smoke fill hole for the auxiliary smoke unit that supplies smoke to the whistle. Again, we're going to do the same thing with the smoke fluid. About 3/4 of the way to the first line. I'm going to go ahead and insert the pipette all the way down in the hole and insert the smoke fluid. A couple puffs of air again. You want to make sure that you put a small dab of smoke fluid on that rubber O-ring that's on the brass fitting inside that steam dome. That'll help that O-ring from popping out of position. It'll help lubricate it. And that steam dome is held on with a magnet, so once it's reinserted properly, it'll stay in place. Okay, now that we've got smoke fluid added, we want to make sure that we program the locomotive so that it knows what engine number to respond to. As we showed you earlier, the switches on these Pacifics are located underneath the firebox. So we'll have to take the locomotive off the track, and we'll have to place the program run switch in the program position. Placing the locomotive back on the track. We'll go ahead and apply track power. Using our cab 2 remote, we're going to press engine 32 because that's what we told the locomotive it would be. And we're going to press the set button. The whistle blow verifies that it took the command. So go ahead and turn the track power off. Remove the locomotive from the track. Place the program run switch back in the run position. We want to also check and make sure that our switches are in the ODY position, and both the auxiliary and the main stack are in the SMK position. This way we will know for certain that Odyssey is enabled and that both smoke units are on. Okay, got the engine back on the track. Go ahead and turn the, make sure we align our tether here. Turn the track power back on. The locomotive, no lights come on, no sounds come on, it's waiting for a command. So what we're going to do on our cab is press engine 3-2, and we're going to use the icon in the lower left-hand corner of the touchpad. I'm going to press and hold it. You'll hear the dialogue that occurs before the sounds kick on. It goes like this.
Dispatcher here. Do you copy? Over.
I read you. Over.
Please start up and stand by.
Roger that. Ready to move. Out.
So now our sound system has come up. All of our lights have come on. We'll go ahead and turn our smoke unit on. We're going to press the straight arrow key and the smoke icon on the touchpad 3 times to get the smoke high. As you can see, it takes a few seconds for the main stack to start smoking. We want to make sure that the whistle smoke is working, so I'm going to go ahead and blow the whistle a few times. You can see we have whistle smoke. It's not uncommon for the whistle smoke to take a little bit longer to heat up than this primary stack smoke. That's because when the whistle hasn't been blown for a while, the heating element actually cools off a bit to prevent any charring from occurring inside the smoke unit. Once you trigger the whistle, if you don't see smoke right away, just give it a few seconds, a few more whistle blasts, and the smoke will begin to appear. Go ahead and blow the whistle for you so you can hear all 3 levels of the quillable whistle. As you can see, as you increase the whistle from low, medium to high, the intensity of the smoke coming out of the whistle detail changes as well. Do that one more time. The cab light on our locomotive is currently illuminated. I realize it's hard to see on the video, but it's on. As soon as the locomotive begins moving, that cab light will turn off. We'll go ahead and get the engine running. smoke unit puffs in sync with the chuffing sound coming out of the tender. I can turn the marker lamps on the back of my tender on and off using the icons in the lower left hand corner of my touchpad. Turn them off, and there's again an icon to turn them back on. Go ahead and run the engine a little bit faster for you. Single shot bell, and then go ahead and turn the bell on. Turn the bell off. Go ahead and play the tower comm.
Dispatcher here, you're lined up and clear inbound, over.
All clear inbound. Out.
Crew talk.
Dispatcher, are we clear through the junction? Over.
Affirmative, you're all clear ahead, over.
Yes, sir. Making good time. Out.
As we mentioned when we loaded the engine memory module, we press the speed bar on the effects up and down button. I'm going to go ahead and press the effects up to increase the labor of the chuff, and you can hear the change in the intensity of the chuffing. That's the labor at the top. I'm going to go ahead and bring it down so you can hear the decrease in the labor. And that's the lowest setting for labor decrease. So I'm going to go ahead and return it back to about Midland. And go ahead and stop the locomotive. Okay, this locomotive is also equipped with sequence control. To activate sequence control, I simply press and hold the aux1 or the straight arrow key for 3 seconds or longer. I'll get 2 quick rings of the bell and a quick toot of the whistle to tell me that we've entered sequence mode. Start that now. The locomotive is now in sequence mode. What this is a pre-recorded set of dialogues that occur based on throttle response. So as I go to speed step 1, the locomotive will actually not start moving.
Dispatcher, we got your signal. I'm green. Over.
Copy that, out.
So now I'm going to go ahead and go to speed step 2, and the locomotive will actually start moving.
Dispatcher, we're moving. Over.
Acknowledge, out.
The bell will stay on until I reach speed step 24. I can, of course, turn this bell off manually if I choose, but I'll just go ahead and run the engine a little bit quicker, and we'll get up to speed step 24. Get rid of this bell. So now I'm at speed step 24, the bell is turned off. As I make any dramatic increase or decrease in speeds, there will be a dialogue that follows it. So let's go ahead and make this engine really roar down the tracks. And let's go ahead and slow it down now.
I'm at slow speed. Out.
As we run through sequence control, the longer you run the locomotive, the more dialogue activity you'll get. Anytime you make a sudden increase or decrease in speed, it will in turn trigger a dialogue. The locomotive will randomly give off a grade crossing whistle blast, which is 2 longs, a short and a long. a whole series of stuff the longer that you run the locomotive and at different speeds. Now as we slow the engine down and we get below speed step 24, so speed step 23 all the way to stop, the bell will turn on and stay on until the locomotive has come to a stop. And we'll go ahead and do that now. So now the locomotive is stopped.
Dispatcher, we're at a complete stop. I'll let you know when we're moving. Out.
We'll have to thank the engineer for confirming that. To exit sequence control, we simply press the aux1 or straight arrow key, and then we press the R icon on the touchpad. The whistle tells us that we've left sequence mode. We can go ahead and play a dialogue to fill the coal pile in the tender. To do that, we press and hold the R button on the touchpad. As long as we hold it, we'll continue to put coal in the tender. We let off, you'll get a quick dialogue.
My coal's full. Over.
Copy that. Out.
We can also put water in the tender as well, and that's accomplished by pressing the aux1 or straight arrow key, and then what would normally be the number 3 position on the touchpad, and press and hold. And go ahead and let off that now.
My water's full. Over.
Acknowledged. Out.
Go ahead and fire the rear coupler by pressing the R coupler button. Get the coupler sound out of the tender, and the coil coupler opens up. These locomotives are now available at your dealer. Oh, let me also show you this, the emergency stop. Let me get the locomotive running. As we mentioned earlier, when you turn the red thumb wheel, the icon in the number 5 position, that is normally a black circle, changes to a black triangle. So let's go ahead and get that moving now. And I'm going to go ahead and hit that black triangle.
This is the dispatcher. The emergency stop. Come to a full stop.
Emergency stop. Acknowledged.
So now we're going to go ahead and slow the train down and stop it.
Dispatcher, we stopped. We're all in one piece. Over.
Good work. Out.
Okay, now that the locomotive is stopped, that icon has changed back into a solid black circle. So we're going to go ahead and press that icon to go through the shutdown sequence.
Going to sign the register book. Out.
You'll notice that when you go through the shutdown procedure, your marker lamps on the back of the tender turn off, the headlight turns off, and the class lamps turn off, as does the cab light interior, or the cab interior lamp rather. And they'll all stay off until you start the locomotive back up again. And to start the engine up again, simply press engine 32 on your remote and press that button in the lower left-hand corner of the touchpad.
Dispatcher here. Do you copy? Over.
I read you. Over.
Please start her up and stand by for track orders.
Roger that. Ready to move. Out.
As we mentioned earlier, these locomotives these 462 Pacifics are available in Southern Crescent, Chicago and Alton Limited, and the Central New Jersey Blue Comet. These are at your dealers now. We hope you enjoy them.